Feel free.
Lots of folks.
Okay, welcome everyone. We'll give everyone one more minute. And again, you are more than welcome to join me on the screen. I have Scott here, my assistant. He'll be letting people in and he'll be taking all of the questions. So since we have a really great number of people, we actually had over 200 people sign up. So I don't know how many are going to show up, but it's a very robust crowd. If you do have a question, if you could use the raise hand button, that would be great. Is that on there? Or just type, I have a question in the chat and Scott will tell me who to call on.
Yep.
Okay, we'll give everyone one more minute. Feel free to say hi if you want to. Hi, Sarah. We have 3 brave souls, although I forced Scott. But we have Anne and Sarah, so thank you. Give everyone 1 minute. Okay, and you, Scott, you're letting people in?
Yep.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay, let's give everyone 30 more seconds and then we'll get cracking.
And we're at over a 10% show rate, so that's actually pretty good.
Well, actually, 110 people said they were going to show up on the Zoom. The rest wanted a recording, so we're even higher.
Even higher.
Perfect. All
Mathematically unsolvable, but very
okay. Well, we're going to get started. Thank you everyone for signing up. I know it was last minute, and as I said, I pretty much put it up there as a joke, but at least 50 people wrote yes when I wrote, should I have a conversation 101 class? So again, anyone is welcome to be on screen if you want. I am recording this for those who couldn't make it. So if you don't want to be famous, just kidding. Feel free not to show yourself. And Anne and Sarah, thank you. If you feel too exposed at any point, you're welcome to not show yourself anymore. All right, let's see a few more people. So we got a lot of questions, so I'm just going to dive right in. I've muted everyone when you entered, but if you do have a question, you're welcome to obviously unmute yourself. Just put in the chat or raise the hand. I have a question and Scott will let me know that there's a question because I'm not going to be monitoring the chat as we go. So we got a lot of questions and they were in a few different categories of conversation. And so the first category is, I've separated them out into online conversations and in-person conversations because conversations are not obviously targeted towards just online or in person. I mean, it spans both. And so for online, I got a lot of questions about the initial conversation, then a bunch of questions about keeping the conversation going, then several questions about salvaging the conversation. And I see smiling because you know what I'm talking about. And then for in-person, I got questions about general conversation, what's too personal, honesty and disclosure, deepening the conversation, and nerves and how to get past those. So I don't think we're going to get through everything today. I'm going to talk till 7, maybe, or 7 my time, maybe about an hour. And we'll cover as much as we can. Oh, also, I wanted to say, obviously, this is a free class and I love giving these. I'm going to paste in the chat. This is obviously optional. If you find this useful today, it's just pay if you feel like you learned something today, whatever you want. So I'm just putting that in the chat, but you know, I'm here to give this class. So I want to start with the questions about online, the initial conversation. And so the first question, I'm going to read all of the questions because they're all pretty similar. So the first one is, should we be using, quote, pickup lines on Bumble or asking genuine questions based on their profile? Well, that's clearly a very easy one to answer. We should not be using pickup. I mean, I can't even think of a, you know, I flew in from Arizona and boy, are my arms tired. You know, don't do that. We want genuine questions about the person's profile, and we'll get to what to do if the person's profile has nothing. Next, what are some good openers that go beyond typical questions like, what do you do? How can you save the conversation from stalling? What do you do when the other person has nothing to work with? Quickest ways to a date? How to respond on Hinge when someone only likes your photo and doesn't write anything? All very similar questions. Initial question to ask someone who has only liked a picture, same thing, but they have no bait in their profile to ask a question. How do I start a conversation other than, hey, hi, how are you? I struggle, I struggle that men don't seem curious. All right, that's a generalization. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, we'll get there. And then how to send the first message that gets a fun volleying going, especially when the profile doesn't give you much to work off of. So all of these questions are really similar, particularly on Bumble. These questions are relevant to women because the woman has to start the conversation. Just to be clear, for opposite sex relationships, the woman has to start the conversation. For same sex, either of you can start the conversation. You still get the same 24 hours. So one person, you both essentially get 24 hours. And then when one person writes a message, the other person then gets the next 24 hours. Okay, first of all, why are we swiping right on all of these people without a profile? I have to wonder that myself because yes, maybe they're very attractive. And look, there are plenty of attractive people who think they can fly by in life on their looks. Good for them. But for most of us normal people out here who actually like want to try, it's important that the person does have something written. I find it to be, I can't decide if it's a pet peeve or a red flag, somewhere in the middle of those. If someone has nothing, or if someone, for example, just lists height, like 6'1", like that's what you have to offer the world, right? What am I supposed to write about that? Like, cool, I'm a height too, you know? So it's very difficult when someone writes nothing. But let's say you're very attracted to this person, whatever they, you know, they've attracted you. Anything is better than hi, hey, how are you? How's your day? Because those inevitably lead to nothing. And I'm sure we've all experienced this. This was the genesis of this class because I posted, it was like a hi, hey, how are you? Good, how are you? How's your day? It's fine, I'm working. How's your day? I'm working too. I'm tired. It always leads to I'm tired or I'm doing laundry. Well, I don't know about you. I don't find either of those things that exciting. And so you can really have some fun with it if the person has nothing. So you might want to write these. I'm recording this, but you might want to write these down in case. You can say something like, you seem like a blank type of person. Am I right? That blank could really be anything you want. I've experimented with, you seem like a genuinely happy person. Am I right? Who's going to refute that? You seem like a person with a good head on his shoulders. Am I right? You seem like a pineapple pizza kind of person. Am I right? You seem like a night owl. Am I right? If someone said that to me, I'd be like, how did you know? Like, are you stalking my phone use? So something like that. It's not rocket science or anything, but it's just something to get the other person engaged and to sort of start a conversation that's better than hi, how are you? How's your day? A sort of corollary to that is oftentimes it'll happen where you might start with a great question and then the other person will answer said question. And we're going to talk about what happens when they just answer and don't ask a question back. But you might start with a great question, they answer it, and then they say, how's your day going? I mean, this happens all the time. You ask, you seem like a pineapple pizza kind of person. I am. How's your day going? Oh, it's like you just did all the work and now you have to do more work. And so I would really try to avoid anything generic. So you can say, you know, my day's been really good. I'm looking forward to my restaurant week lunch tomorrow. Whatever you want, something specific. If they're smart, they'll pick up on it. If not, they'll be like, cool. So same thing when someone only likes a photo of yours in Hinge. So for those on Hinge, you know, you can either like a photo or a piece of someone's profile, or, I mean, and or you can write a message with it. I always recommend writing a message because especially someone who does get a lot of interest, they're getting a ton of likes, but they're not getting a ton of messages. So the best way to stand out is to send a message. The likes, I think, are cheap. And so someone likes you by liking one of your pictures. Okay. You're like, okay, great. This person seems interesting. Do I just click, let that person start the conversation? You can, because that's the same exact level or lack thereof of effort. But do you really think that person who's only liked your picture is really going to start a conversation? I mean, maybe, I hope so, but in reality, maybe not. And so you can start with, thanks for the like. What I would do is ask them a question about the thing they liked. So let's say they liked a picture of you hiking, for example. Ask a question like, oh man, that was a great day. I was hiking in blah, 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 whatever mountain. Have you ever been there? That's a really good way to start a conversation. Let's say they like one of your profile prompts that says you like live concerts. You can say, oh, thanks for liking my profile. Have you seen any good concerts lately? Or have you gone to any, whatever. So something prodding them a bit. We don't want to let them off the hook so easily, right? So they did take the first step, yes, but you sort of have to deepen it a little bit. Who has questions about this? Anyone? Feel free to unmute yourself. Come on. All right, I must be doing such a great job explaining everything that no one has questions. Perfect. That's what I like to hear. So I think that pretty much covers the what do you do if someone gives you absolutely nothing? How to send a first message. I would generally try to keep it playful and light. Like I wouldn't go into, I certainly wouldn't start a conversation with like, what are you looking for? No. Playful and light is the way to go. Thank you, Dion, for enjoying the advice. I'm not even supposed to be monitoring the chat, so I will keep my eyes focused. So that's a good example of how to start a conversation. And I actually have some screenshots I took today that I'll share in a minute about some real life examples. Another point, though, is a lot of people say when I ask them, so I'll have sessions with clients where they'll share their screen with me and I'll actually look through their conversations in the apps and see what is going on. And I'll usually see, and everyone's a culprit sometimes. I'll usually see that they sent a boring message here and there, a hi, hey, how are you? And I'll ask, why? Why did you just do that? And they'll say, well, I was tired, or I was busy, or I was doing this between meetings, or I was doing this while I was folding laundry, always the laundry. I can't encourage you enough not to do it when you're busy, not to do it as something to fill time, because the other person doesn't know you. And to them, that's your level of conversational skills. To you, you're like, I know I'm better than this, but I'm just racing through because I have some time now, so might as well. I would advise against that. Like, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes a day to actually think through some messages and write them when you're not tired will be better. Okay. It's just a small point I want to make. Okay. The bulk of our questions were about what happens when the person asks you nothing back. Okay, I'm going to read some of these questions and they all sound similar. And a lot of them were targeted at men. So sorry, men. What to do online when he doesn't ask any questions, but answers all of yours and keeps the conversation going. Just the basics. How can I get a conversation going and progress it to going out? My default is to leave a conversation where the guy doesn't ask questions and gives responses only. Is there anything we ought to say when this happens? Is conversation worth fighting for when someone clearly isn't reciprocating the effort, but does keep responding? These are all the same. If the other person isn't asking questions back, it's okay to stop engaging, right? I'll get to the answers. If the conversation feels one-sided, what are the best steps to make it more balanced? How to make meaningful conversation on the apps, How blah, 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 blah. Okay. You get the gist of it. This was the majority of the questions I got. And, I bulked them together. So here's the scenario. Let's say it's Bumble. Let's say it's a woman writing to a man. You write this adorable message, the hiking thing. I saw your picture, blah, blah, blah. I love hiking. Where was this? He answers, Great Falls. The thing is, we're not asking because we actually care. We're asking because we're trying to start conversation. And so it baffles me that people are just like, I will answer, nothing more. So I would give it 2 shots. Oh, I've been to Great Falls. I really like it there. Especially, have you been there in the fall when the leaves are changing colors? If none of this makes sense, by the way, I'm not a hiker, so I'm just like making things up about hiking. But then they say, yeah, I was there last fall. What are you supposed to do at this point? You find the person attractive. You thought the profile was good, but you're like, la-di-da, I do not care. And so a few options. A few people asked, do I just leave the conversation? A few people actually, I've seen before advice that I wouldn't give, which is like put them on the spot and be like, do you want to ask me anything? I think that's off-putting. I probably wouldn't answer after that. So my advice, and it seems more passive than I normally am, because I'm usually pretty like, say what you want. But in this case, I give it 2 chances. And if they still haven't asked a question in those 2 chances, I would end the conversation with a single word or 2 words, like, that's great. Sounds good. Nice. I know that sounds, it's not passive aggressive exact. It's really just ending the conversation without ghosting or leaving the conversation. If at that point, you'll probably never hear from them again, if I'm being honest. But sometimes at that point, the person realizes, oh gosh, I have given the other person nothing. I will now ask a question. Has anyone had that happen where you do the whole thing, you do the whole rigmarole, and then you say, cool. And then they're like, so what are you doing this weekend? Yeah, I see Anne shaking her head. Thank you, Anne and Sarah, for being like you're the voice of the group, and Scott, of course. But they sometimes do notice. Okay, and so that's what I would recommend doing. I would say 65% of the time, you may never hear from them again, and that's an anecdotal, estimation. But the rest of the time, they'll notice. And like I said, they were probably doing it when they were busy or watching Succession, or in the middle of a meeting when they don't feel like, a Zoom meeting when they don't feel like participating, and they're like, blah, 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 Great Falls. And so it gives them that opportunity to actually read it, assess, and figure out what to do. Is there anything? Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. We've got a question about
Okay,
Bumble showing your location. I don't know if you can see this, and
Can you read it?
people don't want to say where they are. I don't want to say I'm out running errands or.
Oh, yeah. So what's the question? It shows your location. Usually I'm just running errands. I'm not comfortable saying why I'm not. Oh gosh, you should not say why you're not home. Now, it's not, for those not on Bumble, the Bumble location is not granular enough that it says, like you're at the grocery store or anything. It usually has a city. So New York, it separates Manhattan and Brooklyn, or any borough, Washington, D.C. I mean, smaller cities it has in there too. And so it will show your location. So let's say you're running your errands in another town, it will show you in that other town. If someone says, what are you doing in said town? I find that to lack a little awareness. Like, don't put someone on the spot. Now, if they're in another state, I see no problem with saying like, oh, are you on vacation in Texas? Or are you visiting family or something? But I agree, Sarah, you don't have to tell anyone why you're not home. I think that's silly. Yeah. But it is interesting with the location thing. I remember once I went on a date and I was traveling for a couple weeks. This is years ago from Bumble. And I get there and he goes, "Oh, how was Colorado? How were Colorado and Utah?" And I'm like, "Did I tell you I went to Colorado and Utah?" And he's like, "No, but your location kept changing." And I'm like, "Yes, it did." So just keep in mind that that is something that shows up. So if you don't want anyone to know where you are when you travel, two options. One, turn off your location settings, and then it won't, if you turn them off before you travel, it will not travel with you. Or two, do not open the app in the new location. If you never open the app, it's not going to re-register where you are. You can turn off location settings and still be able to access your current conversations and matches. You just won't be able to swipe. So I have some examples of conversations I had today that will shed some light on what to do in practice. Let's see, I'll share my screen. Oh, Scott, could you give me back sharing abilities?
I could try.
Okay, I'll take back host if
How would I do that?
at the bottom of the screen where it says share screen, you can click multiple people.
So just going like that doesn't help.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I think it worked.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, great. Share. Although you look cute doing it.
I practice.
Can you see my screen? It's just
Yep.
a Word document. Okay, great. So this was someone today who had a really good profile. So this was on Match.com. I just took a little screenshot of part of the profile. There was ample stuff in the profile to write about. This was a guy's profile. It was a woman writing. And she could have picked from a number of things. I mean, he talked about boating. He talked about snowboarding, national parks. I thought the second paragraph was funny. I have a job. I'm financially stable. I have a car. I don't live with my parents. It was a little snarky, but kind of funny. So she wrote, okay, I wrote, okay, your second, and she's young for what it's worth. I wouldn't do this all caps, exclamation points if I didn't think that was your personality, obviously, but she's young and kind of a firecracker. Okay, your second paragraph cracked me up. Sad that not living in mom's basement gives you a leg up, but it does. And do you go to the dentist every 6 months? Like, that's a really good message because it picks up on something in the person's profile, talks about it, and then asks a question. Only thing I might add is like how it relates to her. Like, neither do I. Like, I don't even own a condo. So that's a fine message for Match.com. In fact, it's a good message. I would answer that. There's a little humor in there. So you really only have to latch on to one thing in the person's profile and ask about it. If it's on a site like a Match.com or an OkCupid or an eHarmony or a Silver Singles where people or JDate, where people are writing longer profiles, I generally recommend a longer message. I don't mean long, I mean like 3 sentences, maybe. This is 2 sentences. And if it's on an app, I generally recommend 1 question or a sentence and a question, nothing more. Don't scare people with really long first messages. All they see is a bunch of text on the screen. They don't even read it. They're just like, my eyes hurt. I've been reading work text all day. The last thing I want to read is someone's novel before I even know that person. Okay, next example. This person said nothing in his profile. All he answered was zombie attack, fight. This is on Match.com also. Fight. Okay, that's it. That's really, I know nothing about this person. And so what the heck do you say here? So I went through the pictures. He had 6 pictures. This one was him drinking something with a plant. Look, I was hoping for a more interesting picture to comment on. So here I wrote, so what's the secret to keeping that plant alive? Whatever's in the glass? Again, you kind of like, what's that expression? Like pulling blood from a stone or something. You're kind of making something out of nothing. So to everyone who asked, what do you do if the person gives you nothing? You become a magician. You make something out of nothing. Okay, next one. Here's a perfect example of someone who didn't ask a question back. He wrote that he loves travel. Also, these screenshots are now of Bumble. Bumble actually has a desktop version too. I don't know if everyone knows that. So if you don't feel like having it on your phone, you can do it on the desktop. There are certain benefits to each, which I'm happy to share, but that's why the screenshots look a little bit different than it would on your phone. Okay, right is the woman. What's at the top of your bucket list? I've done several as far as, it's not even a sentence, as far as a trip. I would visit Egypt. I love history. Whoop-de-doo. Oh, wow, Egypt would be a dream. Is your family in the area? I mean, he gave her nothing, so she just asked another question. If I were to put money on this, I would say that she'll get another, like, yes, they are in wherever they are in Connecticut. I would probably say, that's great, just like we just talked about, and call it a day. Questions about that? Are there any chat questions? Nope. Okay, great.
But I will tell you, it's blood from a turnip.
Blood from a turnip. That's the expression? Okay, noted. Thank you.
I think. I don't know. Can anybody corroborate or refute?
Have I been using the wrong expression? Whatever, who cares? They both sound ridiculous. Okay, so this one, I want to get to in a minute. I'm going to come back and there's a reason. Okay. Here's an example of where I just wrote at the end the one word. Okay, so blah, blah, I like this area, traveling through the rest of the year. This was in December. Nope. He did ask you as like an afterthought. You? Okay, fine. Morocco, that will be amazing. Have you been before? I'll be here for the holidays. And then again, just a blah response. So great to hear. He never wrote again, which is like 65% of the time. But you want to be with someone who engages with you a bit. And so in this case, this is exactly what I would do. How many questions can we ask about his sister, you know? We don't care. Okay. This was an example of what you might write in a first message. He had a great profile: architect, designer, virtual modeler. You live in New York, I think his profile is, you might recognize it. Do you virtually model your designs yourself, something else? I thought that was funny. I don't know, maybe not to everyone, but it's a question about the profile. Could also ask anything. He's from Texas, you know, where in Texas are you from? I've been to Austin a few times and love it. When Harry Met Sally is actually also my favorite movie. I remember watching it in college and worrying about the scene because, you know, thinking people would think things were going on in my dorm room, which freshman year they were so not. And so there's a lot in here, what I call message bait, where you can use it to write a message.
Hey, Erica.
Yeah.
We have a question sort of shifting gears, not responding to, but somebody asks, is it even worth sending a like or a first message to someone who has nothing in their profile?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. I would question whether you want to like or write to someone or swipe right on someone who has nothing in the profile, because you do have to wonder how invested in the process that person is. So I can't tell you whether it's, quote, worth it or not. It might be an amazing person behind a naked profile. I can't tell you that, but I will say, don't fall into the low effort message because the person put a low effort profile, because that's a recipe for nothing. Good question. Was there another? Okie dokie. All righty. I have one more here. I thought this was cute. So this person says, New Yorker living in Seattle. So I wrote, sounds like you're living the best of both coasts. Dare I ask which you prefer? Okay, it's kind of cute. It leads to a conversation about Seattle versus New York. The one I skipped was
Chris.
Yes, Chris. And why did I skip this? Oh, because it will come up. The next category of questions was, how do you get to the date? So in this case, it's a good example of how to sort of finagle your way into talking about a date. Because he says going to the airport and buying a ticket to Key West is okay. So She says, love your idea of picking up and going to Key West. I'm ready. He says, what are you doing Sunday? Because I'm thinking of heading to St. Pete's. I mean, that's cute. That's funny. So, okay, that might be too short notice, but maybe a drink or coffee is in order instead. That's going to be a date this Sunday. Okay, so there are ways to sort of ask someone out without asking someone out. So any questions about these screenshots before I go back to me? Okay. All right. Let me unshare. Okay, great. So I want to now talk about the next area that people asked about, which is how to get to the date. So this is all still conversational questions. So, so now let's say instead of what we were talking about, somebody not answering questions or not asking questions, instead they're sort of asking too many and they're keeping the conversation going forever. I don't know who's on this call. I mean, I saw who signed up and I saw that it's mostly women, so I might default to talking as a woman. I know that most women want the guy to ask. That's how it is. And I like it. We all like it. Not all, most. So let's say you are one of these women who wants the guy to ask. You're having a nice conversation, but it's just like, and you're like, I don't have time for this. First, give the other person the benefit of the doubt. For every woman who wants to be asked out sooner, there's another one who wants to be asked out later. I always just say they picked up what the last person told them. So if the last person said, I'm not comfortable meeting in person until we talk for 3 months, which is ludicrous, don't do that, then he thinks now every woman wants to talk for 3 months. It's just we're conditioned by the last thing. It's the way people are. And so don't think to yourself, well, clearly this person has no interest in asking me out. It's more clearly this person has no clue when to ask me out. Also, COVID. People are very confused. You know, what do I do in COVID? The best thing you can do is to ask someone how comfortable they are with meeting. I'd say maybe half of my, maybe 40% of my clients right now are doing video dates first. Because of COVID, especially, I do have a lot of clients over 60, so they're more cautious. And then or ask if they're comfortable meeting in person. So that's a good way to avoid any awkwardness later. Oh, we lost Sarah from the screen. So here's what I would recommend. If you're having this back and forth, I would recommend saying at some point one of these things. If they have asked you a good question, you can say, great question, much better story told live. They should pick up on that and say, oh, great, I'd love to hear it. Are you free this weekend? Okay, so that's one way. You're sort of alluding to going out on the date, but you're not saying, why aren't you asking me? Or, this conversation will automatically delete itself if you don't ask me on it. No, I've seen people do ridiculous things like that. So what I recommend is to say, yeah, like I said, much better story told live. Or I don't accidentally, want to write a novel answering your question, make it cute. But I'd be happy to share that over drinks. Or should we go out should we meet over a drink or a coffee to get to know each other? It's a genuine question. Should we? Well, the answer should be yes. You can say, again, if you're COVID cautious, you can say, should we have a video chat or meet to get to know each other? Let the other person decide that. Then, if and when that person says yes, then you can say, and this is as the woman, you can say, that sounds great. I'm available, blah, blah, blah. He says, let's go get a drink. You say, that sounds great. I'm available Sunday night or Tuesday night if either works for you. And then you say, write this down, I live in Noma if that helps with planning. Because it's nice to be closer to your home turf. Now, if you live really far from each other, like hours, okay, meet somewhere near the middle. But for anyone who knows me, and I think all of you do in some capacity now, I do like chivalry. I like when the guy comes a little closer, makes a little effort. I had a conversation with a client yesterday about this. She went an hour and he went 5 minutes. That's just selfish. And so, don't do that. So you can say, I live in Noma or wherever, if that helps with planning. If they still choose something near them that is totally inconvenient for you, that's a red flag. If they say, sounds great, I'll find a place, perfect. Or if they say, that sounds great, I don't know the area well, do you have a favorite place? That's fine too. You can always give a couple options. But so 3 ways to get to the date if the person's not asking. 1, much better story told live. 2, I don't want to accidentally, write too much on Bumble, but I'm happy to share that over, in person. Or 3, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Should we meet for a drink to get to know each other? Any questions about that? Okay. We got some questions about salvaging a conversation. So we all know there are conversations that die a slow and painful death. Maybe the person does the slow fade. Maybe the answers get shorter and shorter. Maybe they just stop communicating with you. And I put one of these templates on Instagram about what to do when that happens. So let's say you're having a good conversation. This is not a double text like you wrote to someone, that person never wrote back. What should you do? In that case, look, if you want to write again, go nuts. You have nothing to lose at this point. But I'm talking about if you're having a conversation with someone and that person just stops responding in the middle of a good conversation, assume they forgot. It's not personal. They don't know how wonderful we are yet, obviously. And so I recommend saying, and again, this is a template already I posted. I recommend saying, hey, I just wanted to check back in to see if you still wanted to connect. That's it. It's the honest thing to say. A lot of people will do a little poke, be like, hey, how was your weekend? I mean, what you really want to know is, where did you go? And so instead of doing a little, how was your weekend? How were your holidays? Happy New Year. I've seen a lot of that, for trying to resurrect conversations, like Happy New Year. We get it. Just ask what's on your mind, which is, where'd you go? Honestly, you can write a cute, did I lose ya? With a question mark and a smiley face. And that would be pretty good too. Did I lose ya? Was enjoying our conversation. Just wanted to see if you still wanted to connect. Something that's not, it's not blaming anyone. It's just checking in because you genuinely liked this person. Okay. I saw a number come up. Do we have a question?
We have a question from somebody I want to get to know, which is American Wine School.
Oh, me too.
You want me to read it, Erica? Can you see it, or you want me to just read it?
I can see it now.
Okay.
Have plans to meet someone new this weekend, Sunday, and he asked if I wanted to connect by phone first to break the ice. I'm not much of a phone talker. Tips for a less awkward phone conversation with someone I haven't met yet. That's a great question. And a lot of people are doing a little phone screening or video screening now because COVID and it's cold in a lot of places and all of that. So, it's Jill. Jill is American Wine and we should all be friends with her. Hi, Jill. So good question. A lot of people will say that. Look, I don't care for the phone call before the first date because it's just an obstacle you're putting in your own way. There's a higher chance you're not going on that date because of that phone call. So if the person is really adamant about a phone call, have the call, but I would make the sole purpose of the call to set up the logistics for the date. Hey, it's great to talk to you. We should figure out where we're going on Monday. I'm free at 7 and I'm coming from the West Village. Does something around there work for you? You chit chat for 5 minutes and then you hang up and you have your date planned. So a call for logistics, while not necessary, okay. Great question. I consider a video date a date. And so like to me, they're similar. A date in person is better, but a video date to me is still sort of a first date. But that phone call to like break the ice, it's so awkward because you can't see each other. You can't see body language. You can't tell if you're attracted to the other person. I think it's worth going on a date. Now, I know a lot of people in their heads are like, but that's going to be a waste of my time. Oh, that's the voice I use for everybody, humans and dogs. So just get used to it. That's going to be a waste. Well, yeah, it might be, but you learned you don't want to be with this person. That to me doesn't sound like a waste. It sounds like knowledge that you didn't have before. If you go into everything thinking, is this going to be a waste of my time? Most of the things in life are going to be a waste of your time. But if you go in thinking, all right, I'm going to meet a new person and see if this is someone I want to, get to know better, never a waste. It gets you one step closer to somebody you do like. So that's a really good question, Jill. Thank you. So that's how to resurrect a conversation. Are there any other questions about the online portion before I use the rest of the time to talk about conversations on dates? Okay, and I am going to move on to the conversations on dates. So in person. So first we have some questions about general conversation. What are some good getting to know you questions? What are good topics and what are bad ideas? I can make small talk, but it feels fake and insecure. Essential questions to ask on the first date to get to know somebody. Open-ended question tips. How to keep the conversation going. How to lean into awkward pauses. Conversation ideas to get to know each other that are fun and interesting. Okay. I'll first say, don't treat a first date like an interview. I know so many people go into first dates thinking, maybe this will be my future partner. Oh, God, that's a lot of pressure on everyone, right? I'd rather you go in thinking maybe I'll have a nice conversation with somebody new. Because the minute you start that sort of interview mindset, you're basically saying, I need this person to fit into my life. Okay? I need to see if they hate check boxes, if they check the boxes, if they if they will work for me. Well, how is that fair? Because you got to work for someone else too, And so it just feels really one-sided if you're going in like that. And it makes the other person uncomfortable because they feel judged. Look, we've all been on interview-like dates. I had someone actually ask me once, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm sorry, I'm not applying to the company of dating you, trying to date you. And honestly, I have no clue. Ask me today, I have no clue where I'll be in 5 years because I could predict it, but I'll be wrong. So I would keep it light. I would rather you learn nothing about the person, but you had a good time and you laughed the whole time. And so I've had situations where, and I'm sure I've posted this, where I'll ask someone, how was your date? And they'll say, oh, it's great. The person lives in this neighborhood and is this religion and wants this and also wants children and this and this. And their timeline lines with, I don't care. I asked how the date was. I didn't ask you to, fill out a survey for me. So I want you to lean towards questions that get to know the person's personality, sense of humor. Use your own sense of humor. I mean, you better believe every first date I went on, I was making terrible puns. I remember once I was sitting at a bar and I it was a Mexican place and I'll admit I couldn't stop. I was like, I don't want a taco about it. Like, that is nacho jacket over there. Like, okay, so let's move on. I mean, I know I'm like other level cheesy. He was not having it. I was so glad I knew that because if you're gonna date me, you gotta be okay to random, pun slinging. So be yourself. And I can't tell you specifically what questions to ask, but I wouldn't be so worried about what questions do I ask to get to know someone, because all you really need to know on that first date is if you get along with someone. I think asking how's your day been as the first question is a fine first question because you can actually get a lot from that. If someone says, oh God, it's awful, my boss and this, and I hate my coworkers, you have just learned that this is a real negative person and they don't separate their work life from their dating life. Okay. But if someone says, it's been pretty good, I hit this milestone, my dog did a thing, he learned a new trick. Now you can ask follow-up questions on that. I think a lot of people get stuck in general in conversation where they're like, what do I ask now? Where do I go from here? And I would so much rather you drill down on what you are already talking about, both online and in person, than just start a new set of questions. So like, let's say, for example, Scott and I are on a date. I should be so lucky. And I ask, how's your day been? How's your day been? Just make something up.
So amazing. I got to moderate this awesome focus group.
Okay. Really? That's so interesting. Tell me, what was it on? Just make something else up.
Cars.
Cars. Are you
Cars and tractors.
Cars and are you in? Is that like an interest of yours?
Yeah. It's an interesting blend of work and interest. I've been able to merge the two.
That's awesome. Do you drive stick?
Yes. Tractor and car.
Oh, I bet you have a lot of pride for driving stick, because I know not a lot of people do.
And so many puns about driving stick. I mean,
okay.
Really, it just lends itself to.
Okay, I'm gonna stop there. But you see how actually that was a really good example, because Scott answered everything but didn't necessarily ask questions back. So instead of saying like, and where do you want to go on vacation next? And what are you watching on Netflix? I just kept asking him questions about what he already knows. Apparently cars and tractors. And so I just hope he didn't get gonorrhea from a tractor like on Seinfeld. Anyway, so you can always drill down a little more into more specifics. Like, oh, that sounds like an interesting hobby. Is it? People love answering questions about themselves, especially if they're ones that they already know the answers to and can think about it. So like, for example, rather than like a yes or no, more like, oh, do you feel really proud that you can drive stick? Like, that's a feelings type question. People tend to like you more when you ask them feelings questions, because not everyone asks that stuff. So like, let's say you meet someone who runs a business, is an entrepreneur. Like, wow, is that really rewarding, being your own boss? I mean, if someone asked me that, I would be like, wow, that person really cares about me. They sort of get me a little bit. And I would say, you know what? I don't often take a chance to step back and think about it, because I'm usually working. But yeah, it is very rewarding to make my own schedule and things like that. And so you can always rely on asking people questions like the feelings types questions that they already know the answers to and are going to have fun thinking about. It's a better conversation than a bunch of yes, no, or a bunch of one-word answers. I'm sure someone has a question about that. Anyone else want to practice with me? Come on. No one brave enough to be on screen and Anne, you want to practice with me?
Sure.
Oh boy. Okay. How's your day? Oh, nice to meet you. How's your day been going?
My day's been going pretty well.
Uh-huh.
Not. Oh gosh.
Are you working from home?
Yeah. Just try to make it through the COVID world.
I know, all of us.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you have anything like, do you like working from home? Do you have any like fun rituals you do?
Well, I very much enjoy just taking my time, getting my coffee, getting my breakfast together.
Okay, I have an important question. What kind of coffee? Is it fancy or is it K-cup? Not that K-cup, I have a Keurig, so that was not a knock on it. Oh, is she frozen or am I frozen?
And I think it just froze. Okay.
Yep. Okay, you were frozen for a second, so I didn't hear anything about the coffee.
Oh gosh, sorry about that. No, definitely a Keurig person. I try to step it up with the Starbucks K-cup, so I'm like a little fancy.
Fancy. Okay, so I'll let you off the hook now. So
Okay.
you see, so you see what I was doing? I was trying to find something that had a little meat on it where we could get into an actual conversation. Thank you, Anne. I appreciate you doing that with me. So I just wanted to have a conversation, and when she said coffee, that's something I can relate to. Look, it's whatever time here, and I still have my cup of coffee cold from this morning, but still, exactly. So that's something we can talk about. You can tease. I went to Guatemala once to learn how to make coffee. That's a story you can share. So we're just finding a thing that the person already wants to talk about and talking about it. So thank you. Any more brave souls, or is that good? All right. I know Lee's on screen, but blocking the camera. So I won't put Lee on display. Okay, so other questions we got about in person. Oh, I like this one. So these are some questions that get too personal. What if someone asks, why are you still single? Why are you divorced? When was your divorce? When was your last relationship? How blah 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 blah. What happened? No. None of this is anyone's business. First of all, I don't believe in still with the word single. I was actually just having a like a catch-up Zoom with a former coworker of mine when I had a different life in finance. And I was asking about her family, and she said her sister, who's probably 60, she goes, she's happily single. And I said, I'm so glad you said happily single, because still single implies, well, it implies that there's only one way to be, and that's not single, and that's just not the case. And so anyway, so what's a date doing saying, why are you still single anyway? That person is also single and also on the date. So a few options when someone asks that. You can say, aren't you lucky I am? We're on a date. You can say anything you want. You can say, I had the foresight not to be with the wrong people. I would keep it positive. I know I just had 2 negatives in there, not and wrong, but keep it positive, not like, woe is me, I haven't met the right person yet. People ask nosy questions all the time. I was working with someone yesterday who is in her 60s and has never been married. And unfortunately, she gets asked all the time on dates, why have you never been married? First of all, as if there's like a one-word answer. And second, people are doing it to try to size you up. So I told her exactly the same. You keep it positive. You can say, like, I've had relationships and I've learned from all of them and they make me better for the next one. Or I would love to be in a committed relationship. The words, the legal papers were never important to me. You can say whatever you want. You don't owe anyone an explanation. If they ask, why are you divorced? My gosh. You can also say something if they ask personal questions about divorce. I have widowed clients who, say they get asked, like, when did your partner, how did you, like, oh my gosh, they already had to go through that. The last thing they need is to rehash it on the date. So you can say something like, I'm really enjoying getting to know you right now. I don't want to bring the past into the date. Or I'm really looking at the present and moving forward. Or I've learned a lot from the experience I had through my divorce. And, I like to think I've come out better. Or I've done the work since that and I've learned what works and what doesn't. And now I can apply that. Anything that keeps it positive and moving in a forward direction. Because the minute you start with the misery loves company, that I've heard this term recently that I've never used before, but I kind of like it, trauma bonding, which I don't believe is a great way to make a connection, because you're just now sharing your sort of traumas or your sob stories, and it doesn't bode well for anyone, because what do you learn about each other? I don't know about you, but I certainly am an improved version of who I was in the past. Hopefully most people are. So dwelling on that doesn't really tell you what you need to know about that person. Looks
Erica,
like
we
there's
just,
a question.
yeah, we just got a question that actually sort of touches on that. And the paraphrasing is, what do we do if the guy starts talking about past dates or how dating is going or life on the apps?
That's a great question.
Guessing it's a
So
similar, don't drama
it is
bond.
a very similar question. So same thing, keep it positive and present. I hate when people ask that, but they're not asking, well, they're asking for two reasons. One, because they don't know what to ask. And two, because they have a story they want to share with you, or they want to complain to you. Okay. Don't eat out of the palm of their hand. Don't let them drive that conversation. And so I would just say, I've met some really interesting people. That's it. What else are you going to say? Still looking for that connection, or not still, I'm looking for that connection. Oh, any questions about how is dating going? Past relationships, past marriages, whatever. You can just, without sounding like you're deflecting, you can just say, that was an important part of my life and I'm really focused on the future. The how's the dating going thing, people are going to ask you, what was your worst date? Like you can say, I don't want to
Want it right
rehash that.
now.
Yeah.
Don't
Oh,
say
God.
that.
Don't say that. I don't want to rehash that right now. Like, hopefully this one will be better. And so there are ways of acknowledging the person's question without sort of buying into that. I remember once someone asked me on a date, tell me about your last relationship. And I was like, you can even say to someone, wow, that's a really personal question. I'm happy to share more about that once we get to know each other. You can certainly say that too. Like if you're put off by a question, you're allowed to comment on it. Like, whoa, that's a little deep for a first date. Like if you can do that with grace and comedy, even better. So he said to me, tell me about your last relationship. And I used one of my own lines. I'm like, no, I'm on a date, I'm meeting you. I'd rather just talk about you and not somebody else. And he was like, he wouldn't stop. I don't know what he thought he was going to learn. So finally, I got so fed up. I said, I went to years of therapy to deal with that. The last thing I want to do is talk about it now. Well, that shut him up. So there are ways, and you can practice. Like if there is a question that's very grating on you, like the why haven't you been married, as if that's someone's business, or tell me about whatever. Practice at home in a mirror or something. So that way, when you're on the date, you don't always feel like your walls immediately go up or you're on the defensive. If you have your pat answer, you will feel much more comfortable if it comes up. All great questions. I'll keep going for another just few minutes since we started a few minutes late. I'll go for another 5 minutes. Let's see. Some questions about honesty and disclosure. I'm keeping up with multiple men dating. Should I be open when I'm asking if I'm seeing others? Yes. If someone explicitly asks you, are you dating other people? And you are in fact dating other people, say yes. It's generally assumed that if you're on the dating sites, you're dating more than one person until you decide to be exclusive with someone. Assume that. Don't assume that you're exclusive with someone if you have not used the words exclusive, together. Make it as explicit as possible. Does exclusive mean we remove our profiles, or we just deactivate, or we just turn off notifications? I mean, I've seen stranger things. Does exclusive mean we use the terms boyfriend, girlfriend, partner? How do I introduce you at a party? You can ask all of these things and decide what works best for you, because you don't want these loopholes where someone's like, well, I didn't think exclusive meant I had to delete Bumble from my phone. I did. So just have that conversation. So yes, if someone asks you, are you dating other people? You can say, I am. Now, if you're with the person you like the most, you can say, I am, but don't worry, I'm like really enjoying getting to know you. Let's see. When is asking about children, this is a good question, if someone wants them or not, appropriate? Before the first date, on the date? I think it's premature. I think you should use a dating app that requires an answer to that, not requires, but that has that question. So Hinge, for example, it asks whether you have children and whether you want children, and it leaves the option open to children. Okay. Bumble, have I don't want more, have and want more, don't have, want someday, not sure. Okay. Use those. So that way it's a question you don't have to answer. Assume that what the person has, stated in the profile by checking that box is accurate. Don't be like, well, I know you said this, but take them at their word. They've actively clicked on it. Now, if they've said nothing and something is really important to you, a deal breaker, I wouldn't focus on that. I would start with people who have actively answered that question. And so, yeah, I do believe it's premature to say, hey, how's your day been going? You want children? It's too much, because also on that first date, I want to make sure you have rapport, because that will be a completely moot point if you don't like each other, right? All of these things will come out in their time. And I know and I'm going to end with a story. I know a lot of people are trying to get the quote hard questions out of the way early so they don't, again, waste time. Well, what that does is that sort of equates people to just a few data points. If you don't know anything about someone, all they are a bunch of things. Like, what am I? I'm a woman. I'm a certain age. I'm a certain religion. If someone asked me, do you rent or own? I don't know. I rent. They're going to surmise something about me. Like, if they're trying to assess whether we're going to be the ideal partners, those questions aren't really going to help. Because in life, what matters is, can you have a conversation? Do you make each other feel good, happy, laugh? And so I actually think a lot of people do a disservice to themselves by asking all of these hard questions initially, because they don't actually get to know the person. And the thing I'm going to end on is, I had a client who was in, like, I think she was at about 6 months in a relationship with someone she was really excited about. Okay. And somehow at that point, the 6-month point, it came out. I don't know why it was a big deal or why he hid it or whatever, but I guess he did drugs sometimes, like not just pot, but like other drugs. I'm no drug expert, so I don't know how serious these drugs were. Mushrooms or something, I don't know. And she called me in a panic. Oh my God, will you believe that he does these drugs? I can't believe it. Oh my gosh, this is a deal breaker for me. And she said, if I had just asked that on the first date, I would have never seen him again. And I sort of tried to calm her down. And I said, I have a question to ask you. And she said, yeah. And I said, would you take back the last 6 months? Simple question. And she said, no. And I said, so I'm glad you didn't ask on the first date. And so I'll leave everyone with that. I know I had plenty more questions. I see some in the chat that I'm not going to get to, but I just want to thank everyone for signing up. I am going to, again, this was free, optional. I am going to put that PayPal link in there in case, you want to. If you found value in this class and, want to treat me to dinner or something, you're more than welcome to. I would certainly appreciate it, because, I want to do these. I want to make them as wonderful as possible. And so, again, this is recorded. I will try to edit out anything too personal. I don't know if the personal messages I got in the chat end up in the recording or not. I don't think so, but I'll make sure they don't. Thank you, Anne, the sole survivor of having your camera on, and thank you, Scott, for helping me moderate. Find me back on Instagram. I mean, I don't know. You all know where to find me. Keep the questions coming. Keep the DMs coming. I love the engagement I get from everyone. So I hope everyone has a fabulous weekend. And if there's one conversational tip you got from today, then I feel like my job here is done. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
done this before. Anyway.
To participate.